You've heard of Elon Musk, you've argued about Trump, you've watched Bezos reshape the economy, but there's one man in America who quietly makes more money than all of them, and you've never heard his name. He doesn't do press conferences, he doesn't sell a product, and there are zero photos of him on the internet that haven't been scrubbed by force. Yet somehow, this man makes over 50 million every single day. No stock market, no IPO, no tech startup. In fact, his empire isn't even legal. But here's the twist: the government knows exactly who he is, and they still can't touch him. From the outside, he's just another ghost in the system, but inside the FBI, they call him the man presidents can't touch. His empire stretches from Atlanta to Dubai, from private prisons to private jets, and if you think you're safe because you're not part of his world, think again, because at some point in your life, you've already paid him. Whether through your phone bill, your gas station stop, or a local business he quietly owns, his hands are in everything, and no one can prove it. At minute 10, you'll hear the leaked audio that made one federal agent quit the case permanently. But to understand how America's most untouchable kingpin was created, we have to go back to a deal that started not in the streets, but in a senator's office. He was born in Newark, or maybe it was Chicago. No birth certificate ever confirmed it. No school photo ever surfaced. By the time the FBI first got a name, the man was already 38 and running an empire that didn't exist on paper. His nickname in the streets was Black Samson, but in DC, federal agents called him the broker. Not because he sold drugs, but because he sold access to police chiefs, to judges, to loopholes. His organization was never on the corner. They didn't flash stacks. They didn't wear colors. Instead, they wore suits tailored, silent, expensive. And unlike every cartel or street gang that rose and fell in the 90s, his empire never had a logo, never had a face, and never went down. Because it wasn't about violence, it was about infrastructure. From shipping ports in Savannah to trucking routes in Tennessee, he controlled the veins of distribution, not just for drugs, but for everything that moves cash, stolen cars, crypto rigs, even counterfeit meds. You might think, sure, but why hasn't he been arrested? Here's why: every attempt came with a missing file, a pulled prosecutor, or a mysteriously reassigned agent. He didn't beat the law, he made the law irrelevant. According to one former DEA official, he doesn't operate like a criminal. He operates like a government agency with better funding. And the scariest part, he's never fired a gun in his life, but entire cities move when he nods. And you've probably walked past one of his businesses without ever knowing. But where does that $50 million a day come from? The answer starts with a shipment that never got opened in a bank in the Cayman Islands with no doors. The number sounds fake, $50 million a day, but when agents finally traced a single money stream, they realized they'd underestimated everything. It started with Port 22 in Savannah, Georgia, a mid-tier shipping dock with nothing special on paper. Except one thing: every third container that entered was never officially scanned. No customs, no log, no digital footprint. Inside those containers, not cocaine, not heroin, just legal goods with illegal intentions. Medical equipment bound for ghost hospitals. Luxury watches listed under dead companies. Even pharmaceutical components that disappear between warehouses. The port was just the start, because once inside the US, the cargo moved through freight companies owned by shell corporations, companies registered in Delaware, managed from fake addresses in Nevada, funded by offshore accounts bouncing through the Cayman Islands, Cyprus, and, surprisingly, Omaha. And here's the trick: something he moves is technically illegal until it's resold. By the time the law enforcement realizes what the shipment was used for, it's been flipped 5 times. The money already laundered into fast food franchises, real estate trusts, and even city contracts. An IRS analyst once called it reverse embezzlement. He takes clean money, runs it through dirty hands, and makes it cleaner than before. And every dollar is reinvested into more infrastructure. He owns private toll roads in Texas, data centers in Atlanta, and crypto ATMs across California. This isn't crime, it's logistics warfare. But here's the real mindbender. Despite all this, he's never appeared on a Forbes list because he doesn't need recognition. He needs insulation. And the most powerful insulation he has is the United States government. Back in 2004, a junior congressman tried to pass a bill increasing federal oversight on shell companies. It died in committee without debate. What no one knew at the time was that the largest donor to 3 of the committee members was a real estate PAC based in Baltimore. That PAC, a financial front. Behind it, him. Because power in America doesn't need to wear a badge. It only needs to fund the people who do. This mafia boss doesn't bribe, he builds ecosystems. He funds local police unions, while also bankrolling city council members who vote down budget audits. He donates to both Democratic and Republican campaigns, small races only. Never presidential. That way. He controls the gatekeepers, not the headlines. And when things go wrong, he has a network of lawyers who once worked for the Justice Department. Each time an investigation gets close, it hits a lack of jurisdiction, a lost chain of custody, or a sealed document request filed by someone who owes him a favor. There's a reason no president can stop him, because when you go high enough, you find he's already there waiting. And if you think that's an exaggeration, consider this. In 2016, a Homeland Security sting operation on a laundering network suddenly collapsed. No arrests, no press coverage. But a week later, one of the senior agents involved bought a $2.8 million home in cash. According to a leaked FBI memo, direct confrontation would compromise too many assets already embedded in federal operations. This isn't just organized crime. This is organized compliance. And in the next section, we're going to look at the side of his empire that even the FBI can't map, the shadow economy that makes your city run without ever touching a bank. If you live in a major U.S. city, chances are you've used his services without knowing it. That parking lot behind your gym, leased by a shell company tied to a holding trust in Bermuda. Your favorite food truck pays permit fees to a private vendor that's not actually city-owned. Even that late-night corner store with the flickering lights and broken card reader. Yeah, that one moves over $60,000 in cash a week, but never reports a cent. This isn't petty crime. It's an invisible GDP worth hundreds of billions running in parallel with the real economy. According to economists at the St. Louis Fed, up to 40% of US GDP is informal or shadow-based. But they don't tell you who runs it, because they don't know. But he does. He runs it with military-grade structure zones, tiers, redundancies. Each operation is one layer removed legally and physically. If one piece gets busted, the rest continues uninterrupted. No passwords, no emails. Only burner phones and trusted bloodline operators. He doesn't trust friends, he builds dynasties. And here's the wildest part. Much of what he does is technically legal until it scales. Cash-heavy laundromats. Legal. Crypto ATMs. Legal. Private event security firms. Legal. But when you link all 3 and connect them to a nonprofit that received a state grant, you've got institutionalized laundering. Blessed by bureaucracy, a former city auditor from Miami once said, his empire is so embedded, pulling it out would crash half the small businesses in this state. Because at this level, it's no longer crime, it's infrastructure. And in the next part, we'll show how he's not just hiding in shadows, he's shaping culture itself. Ask yourself this: why do some rappers blow up overnight while others with the same talent disappear? Why do certain clubs in Atlanta or Miami never get raided? Even though everyone knows what happens behind those velvet ropes, the answer is him. The Black Mafia Boss who doesn't just control money, he controls the stage. Through a maze of record labels, promotion companies, and nightlife venues. His fingerprints are on some of the biggest cultural exports America has ever seen. Not because he wants fame, but because fame is the best laundromat. Imagine signing a $2 million record deal, but the label is owned by a company registered in the Cayman Islands. Every concert, every streaming payout, Every merchandise sale flows through the same network that moves his logistics revenue. To fans, it's just music. To him, it's a global cash wash machine with Billboard hits. And here's the chilling part artists don't always know. A former tour manager revealed, "You think you're just working for a promoter, until one day you realize your entire tour was financed with blood money." That's why some rappers suddenly rap about politics they never cared about. That's why certain beefs get squashed overnight. Because when he speaks, the culture listens, even if he never says a word publicly. You'll never see him at the Grammys, but the artist holding the trophy might owe their entire career to his invisible bankroll. And just like his control over ports, trucking, and small businesses, his grip on culture isn't loud. It's silent. Silent but absolute. But what's scarier than controlling culture? When the government itself starts calling you for favors. Here's the paradox: for decades, the FBI chased him, but then Washington started calling his phone. Why? Because sometimes the government can't go where he can. In 2011, when a terror cell in Detroit began operating out of abandoned warehouses, official agencies hit walls, no warrants, no intel, no leverage. He solved it in 72 hours. Not with drones, not with raids, but with a single phone call that made the cell disappear. According to one leaked Homeland Security memo, he maintains an intelligence network more responsive than federal task forces. Think about that. A mafia boss running a better spy ring than the CIA. And it didn't stop there. During the opioid crisis, one pharmaceutical shipment quietly vanished before it reached the Midwest. No media coverage, no arrests. But whispers inside law enforcement say he rerouted the cargo not to save lives, but to punish a rival syndicate that had crossed into his territory. In that moment, the line blurred completely. Was he protecting America or just protecting his throne? Either way, presidents come and go, but they all inherit the same unspoken deal. You don't touch him, and he won't burn the system down. One retired federal agent admitted on record if he wanted to, he could collapse 2 state economies in a week. And here's the final twist. He's not hiding in bunkers or jungle compounds. He lives in plain sight in a mansion registered to a church nonprofit, with neighbors who wave good morning, never realizing the most powerful man in America waters his lawn right beside them. You thought this was a crime story, but it isn't, because crime ends with an arrest. And this man has never even been fingerprinted. He doesn't sell drugs. He doesn't rob banks. He doesn't even step foot in the casinos his shell companies bankroll. What he does is far more dangerous. He controls the arteries of America, from ports to politics, from culture to contracts. He doesn't need to run for president, because presidents already play by his rules. The real headline isn't how much he makes. It's how much control he holds without ever asking for your vote. And maybe that's the most unsettling truth. The man you've never heard of might be the most powerful figure in America. So the question isn't, why hasn't he been stopped? The question is, do we even want him to be? What do you think? Is he a criminal who escaped justice, or the shadow kingpin keeping America from collapsing? Comment below and tell us, who should we expose next?